Welcome to my little YouTube corner, where she likes to talk about translated fic. Just got back from a trip to the UK, so stay tuned, cause the books are down with it. Okay. Fade. No, but seriously, my name's Elena, and welcome. This is a special little vlog because I did just get back from a trip to 3 weeks in the UK and 72 hours in Paris. And of course, I did a bit of damage by ordering quite a few books. And these are not even all the books that I purchased, but they are ones that were waiting for me when I got home, and I'm excited to share them with you. I'm not going to read all of their descriptions because, let's be honest, we'd be here for a really long time. So the first bookstore that I went into was Haywood Hill, and the reason why I chose that one was because Nancy Mitford, if you know Nancy Mitford, the author, she used to work there and do her writing there. And if you are not familiar with the Mitford family, so there's a bunch of sisters, and there's quite a few biographies written about them because I think one of them, you know, eloped to Hollywood to marry a star. Nancy was a writer, good friends with Evelyn Waugh, a part of the ton, you know, and the scene and the elites and aesthetes and all that. And one of them, I think either she married Oswald Mosley, who was a fascist. She was, I think Hitler attended her wedding, or anyway, she met Hitler. So they have quite that eccentric background. But her books, Love in a Cool Climate, In Pursuit of Love, are two of my favorites. I love to reread them, especially around like Christmas time, because I love reading about dysfunctional families. And Nancy captures that beautifully. So these books are the ones that I ordered and were waiting for me at home, from Haywood Hill, starting with The Dandelions by Thea Lenarduzzi. What a name. Where or what is home? What has it meant historically and personally to be Italian or English or both in a culture that prefers us to choose? Funny enough, rings, you know, a bit close to home. I always used to think like I'm either too Ukrainian / Russian / foreign and not American enough, and then the other way around. Everyone knows who she is. She just won the Nobel Prize in Literature. Annie Ernaux's The Years. Disbelief, 100 Russian anti-war poems edited by Julia Nemirovskaya. Kingsley Amis, the Amis Collection, selected non-fiction. Gaito Gazdanov by Pushkin Press. An Evening with Claire. Two old friends meet nightly in Paris after a separation of 10 years, trading conversational barbs and maneuvering around submerged feelings. Claire and Kolya resume what fate interrupted. This sounds like a romantic Soviet film that I would absolutely watch. I did presume to ask the question of Eva, and shout out to Eva, the bookteller at Haywood Hill. Who is the modern day, or considered the modern day equivalent of Nancy Mitford? And she said, Cressida Connolly, at least one of her co-workers did, A Bad Relation. So I had to get this. And happenstance, I don't know what I did with the book, but I have After the Party by her that I'm going to be reading now, that was put on hold at the library. I mean, talk about, you know, serendipitous moments. Clarice Lispector. Everyone on BookTube is reading her, talking about her, loving her, paying homage, and I want to as well. I want to. Too Much of Life, The Complete Chronicles, published by Penguin Classics. I'm excited to dig into Clarice Lispector. She does sound like someone who I would thoroughly enjoy reading. Between 1967 and 1977, the internationally renowned author Clarissa Spector wrote weekly dispatches from her desk in Rio for the Jornal de Brasil. Already famous for her revolutionary interior metaphysical novels and short stories, in her chronicles she turned her attention to the everyday, reshaping the material of her life into profound, touching, and funny, tiny revelations. I would assume that that's actually kind of what this YouTube channel is about, right? The everyday. Lioness, published by Bloomsbury, by Emily Perkins. Look at this cover. Yeah, okay. I'll take a disappearing opaque face with a cuppa, yeah? You know how we say we devoured a story and also that we were consumed by it? Eating and being eaten. It was like that with Claire, for me. Oh, baby, yeah. This is another book that I had on hold at the library for a while, and I don't think it's coming in. It says that it's processing, so it seems we don't have any copies, and hard to get in the US, but it's the Forbidden Notebook by, again, published by Pushkin Press, by Alba de Cespedes. And Elena Ferrante says this: while I'm writing, I confine myself to occasionally reading books that keep me company, not as entertainment, but as solid companions like those by Alba de Cespedes. Cespedes. Say less. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is After the Party, the book that I'm going to be reading now. A short little one, and wonderful, tragic comic, beautifully researched. Connolly expertly evokes a changing nation and a woman whose life is altered forever. I hope it's worth it and not just like a flop. Like a, commercialized flop. Anyway, hope is strong in this one. And because I will read anything and everything about Sergei Rachmaninoff, this was the very first book actually I made eye contact with in Hayward. Rachmaninoff in Exile, Goodbye Russia, by Fiona Maddox. Fiona Maddox's descriptions are dangerously Moorish, a timely reminder of the importance of music. Maddox's writing is as exquisitely chiseled as the finest cut crystal and involves no need to ramble. The book looks like a chocolate box, but its content is meaty. Oh! What a description! The book looks like a chocolate box, but its content is meaty. Okay, Jessica Decken. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so that was Hayward Hill. Yeah? So now we're back. We're transitioning, actually not too far from Hayward Hill, is Hatchards in Piccadilly. And if you've ever been to Hatchards, you walk in there and you die. At least your wallet does, your savings account does, because you want to purchase everything all at once. The third day of my sojourn to the UK, I went on a tour of Oxford and Cambridge, and it was led by a historian who went deep into the history of like the Tudors, the Plantagenets, Richard the Lionheart, all of that. And it reminded me that actually in middle school up to high school, I used to read quite a bit of fiction around the Tudor family, like books about Bloody Mary, Anne Boleyn, and I was fascinated. Elizabeth, Mary Queen of Scots. They were not Philippa Gregory books, but they were incredibly interesting to me. And so I had to get some more historical books. So starting off is Henry VIII, King and Court by Alison Weir, a glittering evocation of the Tudor court. I love me some intrigue. I love a good intrigue. The Tudor family history from 1437 to 1603 by Leander de Lisle. The Plantagenets by Dan Jones, action-packed, filled with fighting, personality clashes, betrayal, and bouts of the famous Plantagenet rage. I really do hope you live up to it, the hype, okay? The Shortest History of England, and yes, it's quite short, by James Hawes, and this is for when, let's say, I need a quick retelling. Away from the history a bit, had to Catherine Mansfield's The Garden Party and Other Stories. I sort of feel like if you're into the writing in the UK, you have this copy on your bookshelf. You just do. And I am honoured to add this to mine. L.P. Hartley's The Go-Between, magical and disturbing. When one long hot summer young Leo is staying with a school friend at Brandon Hall, he begins to act as a messenger between Ted, the farmer, and Marion, the beautiful young woman up at the hall. Honestly, this sounds like it might be a tryst. It also sort of sounds like the beginning of Ian McEwan's Atonement. God, I love that book. Anyway, look at this little cover. And the one thing I can note is there's swans all over the parks, in St. James Park and Semperton Park, all over the UK, which is a little bit foreign to the US, so I really appreciate that. Thank you for the swans. Okay, a New York book. Fancies and Goodnights by John Collier. Introduction by Ray Bradbury. Collier's edgy, sardonic tales are works of rare wit, curious insight, and scary implication. They stand out as one of the pinnacles in the critically neglected but perennially popular tradition of weird writing. That includes E.T.A. Hoffman, Charles Dickens, as well as more recent masters like Jorge Luis Borges and Roald Dahl. Also, hope this lives up to the hype, yeah? Map and Lucia by E.F. Benson. These magic books are as fresh as paint. The characters are real and therefore timeless, says Nancy Mitford. The Wonders by Elena Medel. Maria and Alicia are grandmother and granddaughter who have never met. Decades apart, both make the same journey to Madrid to search of money and independence. I think this is an intersectional, intergenerational story. Can't wait to read it. A little chunky. While We Were Dreaming by Clemens Meyer, a Fitzcarraldo edition. Rico, Mark, Paul, and Daniel were 13 when the Berlin Wall fell in autumn 1989, the year I was born. Say less. Let's get it started with a little Leila Slimani. Okay, Sex and Lies, Leila Slimani. Leila Slimani gives voice to Moroccan women who are grappling with a conservative Arab culture that at once condemns and commodifies sex. I read Adele earlier this year. I read The Perfect Nanny years ago. You know, I like to give Leila Slimani many chances because unhinged or unfettered women are... I never tire of that, okay? This book was front and centre at every bookshop in the UK and even the ones I saw in Paris. Astonishing, worthy of standing next to Orwell as a classic. Ooh, okay. A Waiter in Paris by Edward Chisholm. Reaching really deep. J.L. Carr, A Month in the Country. Okay. Another little one, Up at the Villa by Somerset Maugham. The Wide World, Beirut, 1948. The Pelletier family is on the move by Pierre Lemaitre, translated by Frank Wynne from the winner of the 2013 Prix Goncourt Prize. Great storytelling with never a dull moment. Another generational saga. The Inseparables, a newly discovered unfinished book by Simone de Beauvoir. Again, say less, about two girlfriends growing into womanhood and the divergence of them as women. Andrei Kurkov, if you've watched my recent vlogs, I read Death of a Penguin and another one of his. So this is the Dispatches from Kiev, Ukraine Diaries. -16 C, sunlight, silence. I drove the children to school, then went to see the revolution. I walked between the tents, talked with revolutionaries. They were weary today. The air was thick with the smell of old campfires. The Grey Bees. That's the one I read. I like his simplistic way of writing, and I think this is a way for me to sort of reconnect with Ukraine, as I do have Ukrainian roots. I could just be better at that. Okay, I could be a lot better at many things, but another big chunky Mr. Chunky Mr. Funky Mr. The Balkan Trilogy by Olivia Manning. Newlyweds Guy and Harriet Pringle arrive in Bucharest 1939, just weeks after the Germans' invasion of Poland. Yes! This minimalist cover is exactly why I bought this book. Let's be honest. A Woman's Place, 1910 to 1975 by Ruth Adam. I don't know who she is, but reading this got me to think, Ruth, we might be besties in the future. The demand for women to change their colour, like chameleons, to fit the background of the period was one of the penalties of the speed at which their emancipation had been accomplished. Major changes in the state had taken place within the span of each generation, so that every 20th century mother in turn was amazed at the difference between her life's daughters and her own. Actually, I'm living this with my mother daily, honestly. Tomb of Sand, translated by Daisy Rockwell, by Gitanjali Shri. I'm sorry, baby, if I mispronounce that. In northern India, an 80-year-old woman slips into a deep depression at the death of her husband, then resurfaces to gain a new lease on life. Her determination to fly in the face of convention, including striking up a friendship with a Hijra person, confuses her bohemian daughter, who is used to thinking of herself as the more modern of the two. Another perhaps generational telling. Take my money. Ooh, Natalia Ginsburg. I recently purchased her family lexicon. This is also everywhere on the tables displayed. With an introduction by Sally Rooney. All our yesterdays in Natalia Ginsburg. Ginsburg's books snare so much of what is odd and lovely and fleeting in the world. I do tend to find the odd things most loveliest. Last but not least, Veronique Olmy wrote Daughters Beyond Command. Yeah? Daughters Beyond Command is a sweeping chronicle that tells the story of three sisters. Oh, hey, hello. Growing up during a period of great upheaval in France, from the weeks of civil unrest that spread across all of France from May 68 to the momentous election night of May 10, 81. Another big one. So those are the books that I had ordered. I, of course, did stop by and waited in a huge line at Shakespeare & Co. in Paris and bought some more books. I also did buy Martin McInnes's Intercession, which you can't get in the US anywhere. I couldn't get it at the library, I couldn't order it. But this book is from book club, and I just finished this. The bookteller in Bath, which is where I purchased this, told me that this is a sort of a departure from his speculative fiction and more weird works. If you've seen the movie Interstellar, I feel like you might sort of feel like the elements here are quite similar to microbiology and all of that. But it has also that humanistic touch of family and how we are as individuals, but also the sort of microorganisms of family and how we evolve in that. And maybe that's too much on the nose, but you know what? I actually really enjoyed this book, so can't wait to talk about this with book club. I do actually have some more books that I just got, purchase some more books from, what was it? Dot Books in Marylebone, and my cousin, my wonderful, beautiful cousin, is going to be visiting the States in a few weeks, and she kindly offered to take some books and bring them to me, because my suitcase was spilling over at the time. But these books I did just pick up from Hold at the library, and a few of them are quite small. Think, God, Minor Detail by Adanya Shibli. Begins during the summer of 49, 1 year after the war that the Palestinians mourn at the Nakba, the catastrophe that led to the displacement and expulsion of some 700,000 people. So this is a little book about the tellings and experiences of Palestinians living in Palestine or Israel, or however you think about that. Okay. The Color of the Sky is the Shape of the Heart, a novel by Chesel, translated by Takami Nieda. Winner of the Gonzo Prize for New Writers, recipient of the Sakunosuke Oda Award, shortlisted for the Akutagawa Prize. Most novels are born from an illusory sense of security. The monolingual and monoethnic Japan exists. This novel is fraught with the tension that only those who live with the threat of violence can know. And then this little book, and I say little because this is actually volume 1 of 2 volumes, and it's already over 500 pages, of a book called Lady Joker. And Lady Joker is written by Kaoru Takamura, translated from the Japanese by Marie Ida and Alison Markin Powell. I think it's about these group of disparate men from various backgrounds who decide to kidnap the CEO of some sort of conglomerate company for reparations, and volume 1. So, I think the next book I will be reading is Cressida Connolly's After the Party. It's a short one, and I'm hoping I love it because, you know, sometimes when you're giving a new author a go and you're thinking, okay, and it's either like, yes, they're added to the list of authors I want to read in the present day, which I think is really important, and then other times it's like, I do have to say, I allowed myself one book to take along with me to London as I was traveling, just one, and it was the most appropriate, the best decision I probably made before my journey, and that is William Thackeray's Vanity Fair, about 2 different female protagonists, one from a sort of elite family background that falls onto hard times, and then Miss Becky Sharp from, you know, a courtesan sort of mother, a French mother, and a musician father who then tries to make her way up the societal ladder. And of course there's a lot of guffaws in this book, and farce and funny bits, but it's quite, I think, a pertinent telling. It's so relevant to today. Honestly, the commercialization of life is captured, and the morality telling and of what society makes of these 2 women when they're doing well and not so well is very telling. But why this felt so appropriate was because it mentions St. Paul's Cathedral, it mentions Russell Square, Knightsbridge Mews, Kensington Gardens, and I got to be able to be like, I was just there, I just visited that, like I just came back, you know, from spending a day at St. Paul Cathedral. And so not just the story itself was riveting, but just like being in the setting a century or more later after the actual setting of a novel it's kismet, you know. It just, I don't know, it's just really lovely. And I started this on my plane trip to the UK, and I finished this on my plane trip back to the States. And again, it was the most perfect choice that I possibly could have picked. But that's the book haul. Again, I don't recommend you purchasing any of these books. I haven't read any of them, and I try now and then to stay away from book hauls because I know they make me feel like I need to more like the consumption. But really, a good rule of thumb is, if I see someone talk about a book and I know, like I can tell that I'm not going to read that book within the first 2 weeks of purchase, that is a wait for a book. That is a put on hold book. It's just that I was traveling in the UK for the first time, and this was sort of my grand expenditure, although there were other grand expenditures, to be honest. But I hope that you are having a lovely summer, and that you are reading some really joyous books, and books that are bringing you sort of this rejuvenation, because I definitely am back from vacation feeling more curious than ever. And I know, honestly, books have kept me so curious, and they are the gift that are going to keep on giving even after I get back into the milieu of things. So I hope you are well, I hope you are enjoying what you're reading, and I will see you in the next vlog. Thank you.